President Donald Trump will not be visiting Britain next month. He had been due to attend the official opening of the new US Embassy in South London. He tweeted that he'd cancelled the trip because he's not a big fan of the new embassy. Downing Street insists that the strong and deep partnership between the two countries will endure and says a state visit will still take place, although no date has been set. The president is also under fire from the United Nations, which criticised his reported crude comments about some countries as shocking and racist, although Donald Trump now denies using foul language. Tom Burridge has the latest.
£1 billion of futuristic architecture with a moat for security. But now, after a lot of will he, won't he, Donald Trump will not be opening America's new London embassy next month. As ever, the president took to Twitter, claiming he'd cancelled his trip here because the Obama administration had sold the old US embassy for, he said, peanuts, only to build a new one in an off location for more than $1 billion. Wanted me to cut ribbon? No. But perhaps the prospect of this, on a much larger scale during the visit, put the president off. The Mayor of London said there would have been mass peaceful protests. Other Labour politicians agree.
Here you have the head of state of another country who's not only promoted hatred and division in his own country, but is surely, given his online activity, guilty of doing the same in our country too.
But Nigel Farage, who was the first British politician to meet Donald Trump after he was elected US president, says it's bad for Britain.
We have an American president who's the most pro-British there's been for many, many years. It's an important relationship. You know, I would like to see the president come here. And I think actually, I'd like to see him deal with his critics in open, proper, public debate.
So what about the president's claim that the sale of the soon-to-be former US embassy in Mayfair's exclusive Grosvenor Square was a bad deal? We don't know what Qatari investors have paid for a long leasehold on the building. The fact that it's a Grade 2 listed building would have dropped the price. But if President Trump is offended by some in Britain, many millions in Africa and elsewhere are today potentially outraged. Because during a meeting at the White House, Donald Trump reportedly made offensive comments about developing countries when discussing a deal on immigration.
These are shocking and shameful comments from the President of the United States. I'm sorry, but there's no other word one can use but racist. You cannot dismiss entire countries and continents as whose entire populations, who are not white, are therefore not welcome.
In London, only a wax model of the president makes it near the new embassy for now. He, or it, got a very friendly reception this morning. At times, the real Donald Trump has invoked anger in Britain. But for some, this is about the office he holds and the very close relationship between our two countries. Tom Burridge, BBC News.
Well, let's get the latest from Washington and our correspondent Gary O'Donoghue. And in terms of those comments, Gary, I mean, there's very strong words from the United Nations. I think Donald Trump's been talking about this just in the last few minutes.
Yeah, we've had, Jane, what I think is a denial that he used these terms. He's just tweeted this. The language used by me at the Dhaka meeting was tough, but this was not the language used. Now, if that is a denial, that goes against what was said last night by the White House, who did not deny he'd used that obscenity during the meeting. And they didn't, and in fact they defended his sentiment during that meeting. So we'll see, I think, during the day whether or not he did actually say that, but certainly multiple sources have said that he did. What is interesting also is that senior Republicans here have not come out in numbers to condemn this. The leadership of the Republican Party has been absolutely silent on it entirely. And even the only African-American senator, Republican Senator Tim Scott, he said it was disappointing, to say the least. So the criticism from the Republican side is quite muted, even though you've got the UN, as you said, and Democrats condemning outright this use of language. And I think poisoning the potential negotiations that are going on at the moment between Republicans and Democrats to try and find a fix for the dreamers, these young people who are here through no fault of their own.
All right, Gary, thank you. Gary O'Donoghue with the latest there in Washington, D.C.